This conference will now be recorded.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Um Today we'll continue the Hello World example we started yesterday. So what we did yesterday, we created request XSD, we created one request XSD document, response XSD document, and one WSDL document. So these three documents we created as per the earlier sessions. I mean, earlier we learned how to write XSD WSDL, right? In a notepad file. If you take a notepad file, how to write XSD, how to write WSDL, along with namespace concept. So we learned everything. All this concept applied while writing these XSDs. Okay. Of course, we no need to have knowledge on these basics. I mean, how to write this coding. If you don't know, also fine. We have design option. In the design option also, we can create the XSD. I have shown you right yesterday how to create a WSDL without touching the code, not even one line. Without touching the code, we created this WSDL. Correct or not? Okay. So now we will continue from there. We'll design the web service. We'll design our first SOA project, Hello World. Okay. What we need to do, we need to know a little bit about the composite file. So as we discussed in the earlier session, composite file contains three parts: exposed services, components, external references. If you place something in exposed services, it is called service component. Something you configured in this pane, that is called as service component. In the center pane, if you configure something in the center pane, it is called as component called component. Okay, component called component. And in the external reference section, if you configure something called some component, then it is called as reference component. Okay, so the naming conventions and the terminology makes our communication easy. Okay, service component, first thing is service component, second thing is component called component, and the third thing is reference component. Three things. So guys, we also need to observe the source view of this file. If you go to the source view, here you can see this is root element. Under root element, other than two properties, there is nothing else. Correct? Just observe. Other than two properties, one is product version and one is composite ID. Other than these two properties, there is nothing else. But if you do some configuration, what happened? Looks like Vikram has some issue. Guys, are you able to hear me? Any issues with my audio?
Yes, sir, I can hear you. No,
It is clear, right, for everyone? Okay. Okay, let me continue. So what if you do some configuration on the graphical view, okay, either service component or component called component or reference component, anything if you configure in your JDeveloper composite file, then that related source code will be generated in the source view. Related source code will be generated in the source view. We'll observe that. We'll see how that works. Okay. Any questions as of now? Right. So this we will see. For every configuration, we will check this one. Okay. So now, so what we did, let me, yesterday we discussed this one, right? So there are three types of components we discussed. Now what we need to do is in the composite file, we need to configure one service component, okay, and we need to configure component called component. Okay, so these two things we need to configure to make one web service. This become interface of your web service. This become body of your web service. In Oracle SOA Suite, we are using Beeple is the programming language to design the web service body. Okay, we don't have dependency on Java, .NET or some other programming language. So we have dependency on Beeple. Of course, Beeple is a graphical configuration. We'll see that. So we are going to do these two things. these two things to complete the web service. Any questions till now? Okay, now let me, yeah, go ahead. Someone is saying any question. If no question, I will
No,
continue.
sir.
Okay. Okay, good. Thank you. So now what I want to do is I want to configure the service component, one service component. Okay. So our web service is a SOAP web service. Our plan is to develop a SOAP web service, right? So guys, here you can see there is an adapter. There is an adapter called SOAP. There is a component. These all are components. These all are components we can use in our SOA composite file. Okay, I want to design a SOAP web service, so I want to use the SOAP component. It's very simple. You just select this with your mouse and drag it here. See, when I am placing it in other place, it is not allowing me to drop. See, when I am placing here, it is not allowing to drop, and here it is allowed. Here it is allowed. That means SOAP component, by using SOAP component, you can configure either service component or reference component. But in the current requirement, we need a service component. Okay, so I will drop it here. Once I drop the component, it will show me an interface, a wizard to configure. So what I will do, the name, I will give a name. I will say Hello World Service. Hello World Service. Okay, and the type of the component is service. It is service, not reference. Okay, and the WSDL URL. So do we have WSDL handy with us? Do we have any WSDL handy with us for the current web service? If we
Yes,
have
sir.
a WSDL,
Wisdom,
yeah,
yes, sir.
if we have a WSDL, we can browse the WSDL. If we have a WSDL handy, we can browse the WSDL. If we don't have a WSDL, we can generate a WSDL. See this icon, generate WSDL from schema. If you click on this icon, the same wizard will come. We generated the WSDL right earlier. Whatever the wizard, whatever the pop-up we got, the same pop-up will come if you use this option. Let me click on it. See, if I click on it, the same option will come. This is what we configured, right? But anyway, already we have the WSDL handy. I don't want this. What I will do, I will go with the first option, which is browsing the existing WSDL. Find existing WSDL. Just browse it, click on it, and you will get the WSDL. It will give you a pop-up. In the pop-up, you can browse the existing WSDL. Let this load. Taking time. Okay, so we got the pop-up. In the pop-up, you can see file system. Okay, here go to the location. See, this is my location of my project. C drive, JDeveloper, my work, June, Hello World. Okay, under that SOA folder, under that WSDLs folder, select the WSDL. Okay, I just selected my WSDL, which is already available in the project. Click OK, right? And see guys, automatically the port type loaded. Automatically the port type loaded. You just click on it, port type will be loaded. Do you remember the naming convention? Hello World port type. This is the port type we provided at the time of WSDL configuration. And guys, don't select the option copy WSDL. Don't select the option copy WSDL. At this point of time, I'm not going to talk about these two options. We'll see little later. Okay. As of now, leave them default values and click OK. And observe, once I click OK, there is a graphical change and respective source view change also will come. Okay, just click OK. Now you can see there is a change in the composite file. Just save it. Click on save all button. It will save. Okay, you can see this is the service component created graphically, and you can go to source view. If you go to source view, observe this is the new code block generated. Two new code blocks generated. One is imported statement, one is service component, service statement. See, this is service element and this is import element. Any questions? Any questions till now?
No, sir.
Any
No,
questions?
sir.
No? Right. So we got one hello world service component. Along when you generate the service component, one import statement generated, one service component statement also generated. Let me maximize it. See guys, if I double click on this hello world, if I double click on this, it will maximize the screen. Okay, just for convenience, nothing else. What happened? Okay, now if you see this, what we are doing in this import statement, we are importing WSDL. Import type is WSDL. If you read this, you will understand. Okay, import type is WSDL, and this is the WSDL location. WSDL location, path of the WSDL, relative path. Everywhere we use relative path. And see this, this is the target namespace of WSDL. So what we are doing, we are importing WSDL document into composite file. Earlier we learned how to import XSD into WSDL file, correct? Now we are seeing a syntax how to import WSDL into composite file. Okay, so just you no need to by heart the syntax here. We never write composite file by our own like a WSDL or XSD. Okay, but understand what are all the code segments inside this composite file. So you are clear. If you configure one service component, so respective two code blocks generated, one is import statement, one is service component, one is service element. Okay, any questions till now? If no, I will go to the next thing. Okay, right. So service component is ready. Service component is ready. See, one service component is ready. Of course, we are calling it as interface of the web service. What is the next thing we need to configure? Component called component. Okay. Yeah. Now let me go back to our service. This is our project. So here I want to configure web service body. So guys, we are going to use a component called people process. Okay, there is a component called people process. Let me drag drop this one. See here, it is not allowed. Beeple component is not allowed as a reference component. Beeple component is allowed in the component section. Beeple component is not allowed in the service section. Okay, so you should place it at the right place. Let me drag drop the Beeple component. If you drag drop the Beeple component, again a wizard will come. Okay, see guys, you can choose. There are two versions of Beeple component. You can, of course, graphically not much difference. Graphically, you don't see the difference, but there are little difference in the features. We can explore that. So anyway, I'm using Beeple 2.0, and you can give a naming convention. I will say hello world Beeple. Okay, sir, Beeple also belongs to XML family, so Beeple also need to maintain a target namespace. Beeple also need to maintain a target namespace. So what I will do, practice.com/demo slash hello world and hello world Beeple. If you leave the default one also, not an issue guys. Okay, you can leave the default one, but I want to give my own naming convention. Okay, and then template type, we want to make a web service. We discussed web service, right? And here template is equal to you can select based on WSDL. Okay, you can select based on WSDL, but why? Oh, sorry guys. Okay, let me show you this option later. In the example, I will say no service, because along with this Beeple, I don't want to generate any service component because I already generated the service component. We have the service component, right? So I don't want any service along with this Beeple. I want to use the current service component. Okay, I want to use the existing service component, so I don't want to design any new service component with this wizard. So I selected no service. Okay, just keep the template define service later, no need to change it, just keep it as is and say okay. If you click OK, you can observe one Beeple component will be generated. Save all. Just go and see your source. If you see the source code, you can see one new component is visible. New component code is visible in your composite file. See, earlier these two sections generated. Earlier import section and service section generated. Now component section generated. Just observe what is happening when we configure a service comp, when we configure one new component in the BPL. That's it, in the composite file. Okay, you no need to by heart any coding here. You just watch it and okay, this is what generated. That's it. That's enough. Is that clear? Any questions? Any questions? Okay, right now. So guys, here service component is ready. BPL component is ready. When I configure this BPL component, you observe there is a .bpl file generated. Earlier it is not there. Now we got a .bpl file. If you double click on this file, it will open the file and we can observe what is there inside the file. Let's see. See, either you can double click on this file or you can double click on the Hello World BPL component. Anything will open the file. Okay. See, if either you double click this file, okay, or you can say open. This way, Hello World BPL will be opened. Otherwise, this is the component, right? You can double click on this one. Even in that case, it will be open. Any questions? Any questions till now? Okay. So one more thing you need to check. There is no connectivity between these two components. If you see, there are two independent components. There is no connectivity. Okay. In composite file, we can configure multiple service components if required. We can configure multiple component called components if required. I will show you some examples along with multiple components. Okay. So, and one more thing, if you go to the .bpl, see there is nothing. There is something called partner link at the left side. There is something called another partner links at the right side, and center pane, it is the place where we design the business logic. So as of now, this BPL process is an empty process. There is nothing. In BPL, there is nothing. Okay. Now go to your composite and create a connection between service component and Hello World. Okay. We can technically we call it as binding. I want to connect my service component to my BPL component. Is it clear, everybody? Everyone observe. Just place your mouse cursor on this arrow mark. Drag this. Don't leave your mouse cursor. Drag this till it reaches Hello World BPL. Okay, done. So in the pop-up, just whatever option, say okay. If you get the pop-up, just say okay. Nothing else you need to do. Okay, save the code. Save your code. Okay, once you save your code, you can observe one service component, one BPL component, and a wire. This is called wire or a binding. Okay, if you go to the source view, you can see the wire code block. You can see the wire code block, a new code block generated. Wire, which is connecting source component to target component. Okay, and one more thing you need to observe. If you go to the .bpl, see earlier we don't have this partner link, but now we got the partner link. After you created this wire, you can see the partner link. Any questions? Any questions till now? No? Okay.
No, sir.
Okay, done. So now we are good. We are ready with the template of the web service. Web service interface is ready. Web service body is ready. Now go inside the body. If you open the body, here you can design your the logic, whatever you want for your program. Okay. So what we want, we discussed right yesterday our requirement. What is our requirement? We have to get the username as request. This format of input. This is an XML format. Request is the complex element and username is the simple element in the XML. Suppose if we get the data as Ravi, we want to convert the string as hello Ravi. That means whatever input we received, whatever input username we received, we must prefix with hi Ravi. Some concatenation we want to do, string concatenation. Okay, and then that becomes the output. This is the output XML format, and we want to generate this kind of result. So that means there are three things you need to do inside Beeple. Number one, receive input XML. Okay, modify or apply required logic on input to generate output XML. Correct? And then third step, replay back response XML. Or you can say output XML. You need to send the output back. Okay, these three things we need to do in our program. Okay, for these three things, sir, in Beeple, any action you want to perform, any kind of logic you want to perform, we have something called activities. If you see this in the components list, these all are different activities. Okay, if you go to Beeple construct, here you can see receive activity, which receives the input, replay activity, which sends the output. Okay, and there are few activities which can process the data. We want to perform concatenation, right? So this assign action will help us to process the data. Can be any kind of processing, concatenation, addition of two numbers, anything it will do. Okay, so these three things, at least in this example, we need to configure these three activities. We call them as activities. These all are activities. Okay, we want to configure these three activities and check how the service is working. Okay, let me drop the receive activity first in the center pane. See here, drop activity here. Okay, just drop the activity here. Now you got a receive activity. So the purpose of this receive activity is accept the input and store the input XML in a variable. Accept the input and store the input XML in a variable. You just remember that. Okay, so what is the receive activity purpose? Accept input and store the XML data in a variable. You must remember this, guys, the purpose of receive activity. Okay, now how to configure? It's very simple, guys. Just double click on it, and you can see name is the display label. Guys, you can say something. Suppose, let's say if I named it as XYZ receive activity, apply and okay. So see the label got changed. XYZ receive 1. You can change this. You can give some naming convention to this receive activity. I will say hello world receive. Is it fine? There is nothing, right? It's just a display name. Still the activity name is called as receive activity who receives the input. Okay, and then select the checkbox create instance. I will explain this option when I am talking about dehydration. There is a concept called dehydration. We'll talk about it. Okay, and then interaction type. So how we will receive the input? There are two options to receive the input: partner link and event. Anyway, in the current example, we are using partner link. You can see we have a hello world service partner link, right? And then browse the partner link. You just browse the partner link. We have only one partner link in this service. There is no confusion. Just browse the hello world service partner link. Done. Once you browse the partner link, it will ask you to load the port type and operation. Guys, you know that, right? In a WSDL, we can have multiple port type and multiple operation. As of now, in the current example, we have only one port type and one operation. So there is no confusion. You just select the port type and operation. Okay, but there are examples. We have WSDL with multiple port types and multiple operations. At that time, we need to carefully select this option. Okay, just select the option. I mean, this is the partner link which contains my WSDL. This is the partner link which contains my WSDL. That WSDL contains this port type and this operation. Okay, and then I want to create a variable to store the input data. Receive activity receives the data, but its job is not over. After it receives the data, it needs to store the data into a variable. For that, we need a variable. Either you can browse the variable if the variable is handy with you, but in the current example, we did not create any variable as of now, correct?
Sir.
So,
Yes.
I want to create a new variable. Just click plus icon. You can give some naming convention. I will say input variable. I don't want to go with a big naming convention. I said input variable, or I can say hello world input variable. It is user defined keyword. You can give some user defined keyword as your variable name. Just click OK. Once you click OK, a variable created, and then say OK. Then if you observe, there is a binding established. So that means this is your interface. This is your service component, which we configured in the composite. This is the service component, which we configured in the composite. The same thing is visible inside Beeple. And we did a configuration to receive the input. We did a configuration to receive the input. And here you can also observe, we created a variable. This variable is going to help us by storing the input XML. Whatever input XML I received, that I am going to store in this variable. Okay. So any questions related to receive activity? Purpose of the receive activity? What is the task of the receive activity?
No, sir. And sir, one more
Clear.
thing. Can we see detail in source level, sir? What happened in that?
Yes, you can see. Yes, you can see the Beeple also. See here, we have a design view and a source view. If you go to the source view, check this. I mean, yeah, it's a good point you raised. Initially, when we configure the Beep, when we open the Beeple, when it is empty, right? At that time, we don't have this stuff. This stuff is not there. Okay. The root element of Beeple is process. Root element of Beeple is process, and we don't have this stuff. This stuff is generated only when we configure the receive activity. Okay, you just observe when you are doing each configuration, open the Beeple source view and observe. Okay, done. So now the next activity I want to configure, which is a replay activity. Replay activity, which is going to send a response back. Response back. Okay, so drag drop the replay activity. Drag drop the replay activity. And then I want to configure it similar, the same process what we followed for receive activity. Similarly, we can do the configuration for replay activity. I can double click on the replay activity and I can do the configuration. See, I can browse to whom I need to respond back, which partner link I need to respond back. I need to browse the partner link. Okay, but there is another option. There is another option. Here directly you can create the binding, something like this. If you drag drop, select the arrow mark, either you can go for double click. You can double click on the activity and do the configuration like what we did in the receive activity. I want to show you second approach. You can create a binding. See, drag the line till the partner link, till the partner link. So that means we are telling the reply activity, use this partner link. Now, if you see the pop-up, it comes with the partner link. It comes with the partner link, Hello World Service. Hello World Service is my partner link and port type selected, operation selected. Okay. And I want to give some naming convention, Hello World Replay. Hello World Replay. And I want to create a variable. This variable, I want to call it as output variable or Hello World output variable. Your choice. What is the name we provided for input variable? We named it as Hello World input variable, right?
Hello world input variable. Yes, sir.
So I want to give it as Hello World output variable. Okay. So now done. So I'm ready with the variable in the reply activity as well. If you go to the source view, you can see the reply activity. You can see the reply activity configuration. Earlier we configured receive activity. Now we configured reply activity. And this is the partner link configuration. And we created total two variables. We created two variables, Hello World input variable, Hello World output variable. Everything we did graphically. We never write the coding here. We no need to write the coding explicitly, but you should understand what is the code is getting generated in the backend. Any questions? Any questions? Okay. Now, okay. So now what we need to do, our program, it is the high level template is ready for our program. There is a receive activity who accepts the input, okay, and stores the data into input variable, stores the data into variable, okay, and there is a reply activity who sends the response back to the client, and it will send a response. It will send the data as output, which the data must be in this variable. Whatever data available in this variable, that goes as output. Okay. Now what I want to do, I want to implement the concatenation logic. So if you want to process the data, we have to use an activity called assign activity. There are few other activities, we'll talk about them one by one, but now I'm talking about assign activity. So by using assign activity, what we can do, by using assign activity, you can, okay, sorry. By using assign activity, what we can do, we can process the data. When I said process the data, it can be addition of two numbers, it can be concatenation of two strings, anything is processing data. Okay, let me open the assign activity. If you see this assign activity, it has two panes. Source pane, this is called source or from. Okay, this is called from, and the right side is called as to or the target. Okay, so now what I want to do, whatever input I am going to receive, see, my input will be in XML format. Request is the complex element, username is the simple element. This is the input I am expecting. This is what we expected, right? How we got this format here? Because of our XSD. We defined an XSD, right? In the XSD complex element, we defined as request. In the XSD simple element, we defined as username. And if you see the output variable response is the complex element, which is the simple element. So these two variables you can see at the source side as well as target side. Same variables you can able to watch. Okay, so request input variable, output variable in the source side, input variable, output variable in the target side. You need to decide, as a developer, you need to decide which variable contains the data, to which variable we need to copy the data. Okay, so in the current use case, input variable contains the input. Input variable contains the input. We will receive the username in input variable. We need to do some concatenation. After concatenation, result I want to copy into my target variable, which is nothing but output variable. Result I want to copy into output variable. Input is available in the input variable. Is the concept clear? Concept clear? So what we want to do, first I'm not doing any concatenation. I just want to copy the data. Simply I want to copy the data, nothing else. See what I did. I created a wire. This is called wire. I mean, hello, is my voice audible?
Yes, sir. For me, audible.
Okay, fine. So I don't know where I missed. Let me tell you about the assign activity. Okay, so in the assign activity, we can see all the variables at the from side and to side. Okay, from side and are the source side, to side are the target side. Okay, so here as a developer, we need to decide from which variable, which variable we need to consider as source variable, which variable we need to consider as target variable, that we need to decide. So in our current use case, hello world input variable is the source variable, output variable is the target variable. So what I want to do is, actual requirement is we want to perform concatenation. But before showing you concatenation, I want to copy the data, whatever data available in the input variable, same data I want to copy into my target variable. So in the input variable, it is an XML. In the input variable, it is an XML. The complex element name is request, simple element name is username. In the target variable, it is also expecting an XML, target also expecting an XML. The complex element is response and the simple element is wish. So in general, if you consider any XML, so who holds the data? Is it complex element or the simple element? If you have an XML with collection of elements, bunch of complex elements, bunch of simple elements, which element holds the actual data? Simple element, right? Simple element.
Input.
Always simple element holds the data. Complex element holds collection of elements. Complex element don't contain any data. Complex element contains collection of elements. Okay. So now here in my source, username is the element which contains the data. Same data I want to copy into my target variable, and in the target variable, wish is the simple element. Then I'm not doing any concatenation logic. I will show you the concatenation logic little later, but I'm just copying the input data as output data. That's it. Apply and OK. So now if you see, our program is ready. Our program is ready. Accept the input and store the input data into input XML. Accept the input and store the input data into input XML. In this assign activity, we are copying the data from source variable to target variable. Source variable is input variable, target variable is output variable. Now the data copied into output variable. And then finally, we have a reply activity, which is going to send the output variable data, whatever output variable contains. Whatever output variable contains, that output variable will go back as the output of the program. Okay, done. Now our program is ready. Our program is ready. Okay, now what we need to do, we want to test this program. To test the program, we need a server. We need server to test this program. So for that, guys, in 12C, SOA Suite Quick Start, right? SOA Quick Start, 12C version, we have an easy option. We have an easy option. If you go to Windows Application Servers, if you click this option, this panel will be opened. This panel will be opened. Here, there is an integrated WebLogic server option. Integrated WebLogic server. So what we need to do, there are two things we need to do to get a server. If you want a server, SOA Quick Start we installed, right? This guy contains JDeveloper with integrated server. Okay, this guy contains JDeveloper with integrated server. We need to do two configurations, domain configuration and start server. Domain configuration and start server, and then stop server. Stop server. Okay, there are three things you can do, and the first one is a one-time activity. If you configure the domain one time, that is enough. Next time onwards, you don't need to do this. But server and start server and stop server, you can do every time. Whenever you want to run your program, whenever you want to deploy a program, you need to start the server first and then deploy your program and test your program. And if your practice is over, you can stop your program. These two steps we need to do repeatedly, but the first step is one-time configuration. Okay, let me show you the configuration. It's very simple configuration, guys. If you go to this integrated WebLogic server, right click on it, and there is an option called create default domain. Just select this option. This is only one-time job. Select this one. You will get a pop-up. It is showing some username, and you can configure a password. I'm going to configure some password here. Sir, I am using the most used password welcome1. Okay. You can also configure welcome1. Okay. I mean, just to easily remember, nothing else. But password is your choice always. And I'm not changing the listening ports 7101, 7102. Just remember this. Remember this, what we configured here. This is required when we start every time when we start the SOA server. Okay. We need to remember all this configuration. Admin ID, our username is WebLogic. Password, I provided welcome1 here. Okay. And the listening port 7101, SSL listening port 7102. Just remember the things. Okay. And say okay. Once you click OK, in the log, you can see here, this is the log. Where is the log? Let me open log. You can see if you go to window and there is a log option. If you click on the log option, it will show you the log, what is going on. What is going on. So what happened? Creating integrated WebLogic server domain. It is configuring WebLogic server domain. It may take 5 minutes for us. Okay. Yeah. Meantime, let me know if you have any questions. I will talk about the domain very clearly once I completed everything about Hello World. I mean, Hello World development, Hello World deployment, Hello World testing, and there is some debugging we need to see. Once this process is completed, I will talk about the domain, server, integrated server, everything. I will talk about it as a separate concept. Okay. So, meantime, today I'm not, I mean, at this point of time, I'm not talking more about the server. I'm just giving you introduction, how to configure and how to start and test. So if you have any questions, you can ask me. It will take time. It will take around 5 to 10 minutes time to configure the domain. But there is, I mean, nothing we need to do. It's a system generated thing, right? It will take care. You don't need to do anything. But going forward in the further sessions, we will try to understand what the server configuration is, what it contains, what are all the internal components, everything we'll discuss. So any questions from anyone? Okay, I will do one thing. I will pause the recording here for some time because it will take 5 to 10 minutes, right? I will pause the recording. And once the domain configuration completed, I will revoke the recording. Okay.
Okay, sir.